Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another edition of Against the Turn, IndianCricketFans.com's very own cricket discussion show. I'm ICF admin Akwin, one of your hosts for today, and co-hosting today's session with me are my fellow admins Udit and Rahul. Hey, Udit, how's it going?
Hey man, how's it going, buddy?
Yeah, good. And Rahul, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. So, guys, it's our debut. Let's not get out playing against the turn. All the very best to you guys. And now it's time for me to introduce our guest for today, Mr. Jamie Alter. Jamie is a sports journalist. He's an author, actor, and a digital content creator. As a journalist, Jamie has worked for ESPN Cricinfo, CricBuzz, Times of India, and other notable organizations. He's written two books, A History of the Cricket World Cup, 1975 to 2007, as well as a book called The Field of Dreams, which is about the D.Y. Patil Stadium. As an actor, he's acted in 4 films, and his most recent acting engagement has been the web series called Of Source. Check it out on Amazon Prime. And as a digital content creator, Jamie features in videos on his personal YouTube page, as well as on the satirical channel called Fake It India. He is a co-founder of My Two Cents India, which is a platform for people like, especially Indian sports fans, to air and share their views and opinions. So, extending a very warm ICF welcome to you, Jamie. How are you doing today?
Thank you for that lovely intro, Quinn, and good to be here and good to see all of you and looking forward to some good cricket talk, which is what I like doing when I'm free. So,
yeah, likewise. All right, viewers. So before we start our main discussion, I'd just like to outline today's session. The discussion will be divided into two broad sections. Section one will be based more about Jamie's personal and professional life, with a particular focus on his time as a sports journalist. And the second session will be more cricket-centric. We'll be discussing the ongoing England tour of India, as well as the IPL auction that happened recently. So, gentlemen, let's get started. Now, I'd like to start proceedings by officially announcing the fact that, Jamie, you are our first Indian guest on Against the Turn. Yes, that's right. Jamie is an Indian of American heritage, and like his father, the legendary actor Padma Shri Tom Alterji, Jamie was born in India. So, Jamie, tell us, where exactly in India were you born and brought up, and how and when did you get interested in cricket?
so not a lot of people know that I was actually not born in Bombay, as it was known back then, or Mumbai, or Missouri, the two places where I spent the majority of my time. I was actually born outside of Ahmedabad in a small area called Nadiyad, where I think Akshay Patel may be the only other person of note to come from there. I'm just kidding. There must be many more. But my Nanaji was working there at the time, and because my father was firmly entrenched in the world of acting in Bombay, and he was on the road, my mom, when she was expecting, she said, "There's no point probably being alone in one of the big expensive Bombay hospitals, because my husband could be in any part of the country shooting. I'll go closer to where my parents are based, which was in Ahmedabad, and they had a common doctor friend who ran this little hospital in Nadiyad. So I was born there, but literally 2 days later, we were out of there and back to Mumbai, and I've never gone back to trace those roots. So, but yes, because I was born there, I have to say that. But otherwise, home was divided between Mumbai and Missouri. So I'm very blessed to have been able to grow up in a hustling, bustling city like Mumbai, but to also have this magical sort of childhood up in the mountains of Missouri. And how I got into cricket is actually not very surprising, because my father was a complete sports nut. Not just cricket, I have to say. He was into many sports. He loved hockey, badminton, tennis, basketball, soccer, a lot of things. I think apart from like sailing and golf, he regarded everything else as sport. He didn't have time for these two things. Though one time he got on the golf course for an ad film in Sri Lanka, and he was supposed to swing, and he hit something which was like perfect. And they're all like, "Come on, you're just kidding. Surely you play golf." He's like, hand on heart, this is the first time I've held this blasted club. So I'm an actor, I can do it. Growing up around cricket and watching cricket on TV, hearing stories, hearing radio, going to watch West Indies in 1987 at the Wankhede, which was Viv Richards' last tour to India. Magazine clippings, my father's old childhood scorecard and archives. It was very much around me. So there's no way that I could not have gotten into cricket. Did I ever think I'd be making a career out of it? Absolutely not. But as things happen, I ended up leaving a good financial services job in the US to come back to India to join Cricinfo. So 15 and a half years later, here I am.
Oh, it's
Pretty
lovely
good.
to
I mean,
hear.
Yeah, I have a follow-up to that when you mentioned about the 1987 game, which was one of your earliest. Is that one of your earliest memories? That was the first game you ever watched in the stadium?
Absolutely. That would be the first time I watched a live cricket match. Definitely the first time I went to watch an international match. I may have gone to watch one of my father's club matches, but I strongly doubt that. I could not even tell you who the players were and what was happening because I was 6. But I remember my father saying, "That's the great Viv Richards and that's Kapil Dev," and I'm like, "Yeah, okay. Where's the candy cane and where's the popcorn?" But yes, that was my first memory of watching the game live. Was definitely 1987. I think it was the second half of the year, maybe November. I think it was. I'll have to go back and check the scorecards, but it was 87, India, West Indies, Wankhede.
Fantastic memories. My earlier memory I know was the 99 test of Anil Kumble taking 10 wickets. That's the only game I remember. It was the second game which I ever watched, and after that I left India, so I don't have any other memories from India. But
I have to add, just because you brought up that match, it was literally days before I had to go back to Missouri, which is in North India, from Bombay, the end of the winter holidays, and somehow we got tickets only for day 5, and I'm like, Kumble, seriously?
Yeah, I know. We had
But it
school
was
on
great
Monday,
to
so
watch
I
it
know.
from
Yeah. Yep. So just follow-up question to that. Just piggybacking on that. What was Jamie Alter at the age of 18, almost done with grade school, 12th standard? What did you do post that? I mean, how did you get into this cricket journalism thing? How did you follow it up after 12th grade?
Sure. So I graduated from a school in Missouri in North India called Woodstock, which is an international boarding school. It was sort of pre-decided largely by my mother that I would do college in the US in one of these small, scenic, Midwestern liberal arts colleges, because that's where she had gone. And she was very keen that I sort of, though she knew that I would probably come back, she wanted me to go and see if I could tap into the American side of our family, because like you said, I'm 4th generation American in India. And so she's like, don't worry, I'll pay for it. You just go do your best and try and learn that part. I said, hey, it's your money. Fine, I'll do it. So I go there and I majored in international political science with the focus on international relations. I don't know what I was doing that, but hey, it was a long time ago. I graduated from the College of Worcester in Ohio in 2003. I did not know what I wanted to do. I had a lot of family in the New England area. So I said, hey, why not go where there's free room and board? And the family's American, but they're all Desi. They're like, yeah. So I showed up at my uncle Steve's house and my aunt Amita, and with their 2 kids, Jayant and Shivani, and pretty much I just camped out there for like 9 months, just looking for work, and just because I didn't want to go to law school. I sort of chickened out at the last moment. I didn't have the strength to go and get into foreign policy. So I said, let's see what happens. So then I ended up working for Sun Life Financial because I'd done a bit of economics. So I worked for about 18 months at a Sun Life Financial just outside of Boston. I've said this many times, so in case anyone has heard this, sorry for that. I rocked up to work one winter morning, January 2005, having gotten up at 6 o'clock to shovel the driveway and scrape snow off. I was just pissed off, and I drove 45 minutes on Route 9. I got to office, put my bag down. At 7:45 was my reporting time in the morning, which is bloody early, I have to say, for me. And I sat down and I looked at myself. I said, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And the answer came, probably at the same desk, not doing much else. I said, screw this, man. I got to get out of here. So I sat down. I looked at what I was doing beyond the work. I was spending a lot of time on Willow TV, like you guys would be doing in the States, watching matches. I was on Cricinfo. I was following scorecards. I said, you love cricket. You love to write. You have a good grasp of the game. Why not just try doing this? So it was January 2005. I hopped onto Cricinfo, a Wisden Cricinfo as it was back then. I saw that their Chennai office, their Mumbai office, and their Hammersmith London office were looking for people to write. So I hacked out a CV when I put in some links to to the articles I'd written for my college newspaper on our inter club matches. I had some blogs I put it together, and I mailed off these three. And I mean mail, like A4 sheets, from what's the place where you go to your, it's like not Staples. What's the Staples, the place in the
Staples
States?
or FedEx, Staples.
I think it was Staples. You go there, you get a printout, then FedEx, the yellow envelope, do all that, mail it off. And I'm like, they're never gonna get back to me. But Sambit Bal did get back to me via email, probably about a month later, saying, "Hey, this sounds good. You clearly have the passion. Your writing samples are pretty raw, but I see scope there. Can you come down for a meeting?" And I'm like, "Sir, it's February, and I'm not due to come back for my next vacation in August." He's like, "Yeah, we'll wait." I'm like, "Okay." So fast forward to August, I go back to India for literally for 2 weeks vacation. I go to the Cricket Info office in Mumbai. I'm sitting in Sambit Bal's little cabin. He asked me 3 questions. I answer apparently right. He said, "You're hired. When can you start?" I'm like, "So I'm based in Boston." He's like, "Oh yeah." I said, "Sir, mere ko wapas jana padega. I'll have to inform my boss. I'll have to sell my flat, my car. Can you give me a month?" He's like, yeah, come back soon. So I did all that. I think I came back in about 7 weeks, 6 weeks. And then October 10th, 2005, I began this new line of work as a complete novice, having no prior experience of journalism or media studies. And 15 and a half years later, here I am talking to you guys about cricket. So
it's a great story. I mean,
Jamie,
I'm
to
just
the follow-up,
amazed. Yeah, go
a
ahead.
follow-up to what you said. So basically, it was cricket, and you're not liking your job that made you come back from America, or you
and
never thought of settling down in America?
and also just to add, also I was also very homesick. I was at a stage where I just didn't feel like I belonged in the US, which it's all fine, like being in college when it's all fun and games and you're surrounded by all daisies, but sort of being in that work culture, I just didn't feel like I really belonged there. So that was also a huge factor to come back, was being homesick. But no, I never
Yeah.
thought of getting into this line ever. No.
I asked you that because I read somewhere that you were detained at uh, English airport or for showing your Indian passport, that they didn't believe that you're an Indian.
No.
I read somewhere.
That's. I think you got a few stories mixed up. I was flying out of Bangalore while I was working for Crick Info. I was flying to the UK for our. We had this exchange program where one staff member would go to England and they'd come down to Bangalore. This was so I had some early morning flight, as they always are in India. And the guy at the counter, the Air India Airlines guy, he refused to believe that this was my passport. So he threw it back at me saying, "Aapka real passport kahan hai?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? Like this is my passport." He wouldn't believe it. So then I said, "Well, go to your superior." So this poor fellow, he goes to his superior in the cabin. Superior was probably taking a nap at 2 a.m. He gets up, he takes one look, and he literally abused the guy and says, "Do you not know who this guy is? This is Tom Alter's son. If his passport says Alter, there's only one more Alter. He's got the Padma Shri. More than that, if this has been stamped by one Mr. S.K. Sharma of the passport office, this is definitely not fake." So that was one story. A similar story was when I had gone to Sri Lanka in 2009 to cover India's tour. Coming back, the same thing happened. The Sri Lankan Airlines guy refused to believe that the white guy could have an Indian passport. So I think it's a combination of all these stories. The third thing, I think what you're also asking, and I'm going to talk one more time here. I was flying back to the US years later, and I had a green card. And with a green card, you have to come back every 6 months. And I had not come back for like a year and a half. So when they saw that, they took me downstairs to one of those rooms, and these big cops. And I thought I was in a movie. They're like, "Sir, why haven't you been here for a year?" Whatever it was. And I said, "Listen, I don't want your green card. I've left." So then one of the guys had actually been to India like in his hippie years. So he said, "Guys, look, this guy is clearly legit. He's not faking it. There are people who look white, but they're Indian." So probably what you're asking is a mixture of all these 3 stories put together.
So,
Okay.
I mean, you clearly had a pretty productive post high school life and also your early 20s post
Absolutely.
graduate life. I mean, what I was just thinking, I mean, you do a lot of stuff right now. You're into shooting movies, shows. You are running a lot of YouTube channels. I mean, one with your wife and a couple of them alone. You are also running a website. I've been checking the My Two Cents. So you're living this life right now, and then you have worked as a journalist, which was extremely productive. You worked for numerous websites and all. So do you feel more relaxed now, or you were actually more relaxed back then, or is it like you have the same feeling, you're just enjoying your life right now?
Absolutely, I am more relaxed. It was a conscious decision for several factors to get away from that really hectic, that corporate. I use the word corporate even though it's media, because it has become a corporate structure. You can imagine, especially in the digital. I've always been digital. I've never done TV or print. I've always been digital. So and invariably, the higher you go, when you're handling teams of 10 to 12 people, and then you're dealing with SEO, SEM, marketing, sales, it just becomes a headache. So I was not necessarily enjoying a lot of what I was doing. And also the acting offers were, on the other hand, they were also piling up. I shot Afsos while I was part of the Z group, and I can say it now because I've left them. um, I was not allowed to even speak or go on any show which had a rival digital property to Z, which has the Z5 app. And here I've sources for Amazon Prime. So I could not even tell my boss, the editor of the group, that I was taking a 5-day break to go shoot this show. So I said, no, I'm just going to help out a friend. He's making a small documentary. He wants a role. So I did Afsos under the carpet. So it was a combination of just very honestly seeing how bad the Indian media has become, a lot of problems. So just being a bit disgruntled. Yes, the money was very good. I realized that taking a backseat from that would have repercussions. But I gave myself 2 years to see where the acting thing goes, to see where the YouTube thing goes. Mind you, this was before COVID-19. Had I seen it happening, I wouldn't have chucked away that fairly luxurious job. Because like I said, I had a few projects lined up in terms of web series and movies. Then they all stopped literally 3 months after I quit. But look, I don't have to report to anybody. I'm not spending 2 hours a day in meetings. I'm not dealing with Facebook people and Twitter clients. I'm not working 12 hours. I'm not looking at spreadsheets. I'm just doing whatever I want to do, and I'm loving it. So that's a huge plus. Do I miss the old thing? Of course I do. Would I go back? I'm not so sure right now, because this is just a fantastic. I never thought I'd be running 3 YouTube channels or my own website, or writing columns and doing. Never thought about it. No, I thought I'd be doing journalism. I'm talking about mainstream journalism as an editor of a property for years. But you make a call and you stick by it. So that's what it is.
Jamie, something regarding your father, the legendary Tom Alter. All cricket fans know that he conducted the first video interview of the great Sachin Tendulkar. So that is something, a big moment in Indian cricket, and probably something everyone cricket fan knows. You have had something like that in your career, where you interviewed or you met someone who went on to become a big cricketer or a big sports person or something like that in your career.
Yep. Virat Kohli.
You met Virat Kohli. At what age did you meet him?
This was 2010. This was when Kohli had been recalled to the Indian team literally maybe a year before, after being dropped initially. He got 200s, back-to-back hundreds against Sri Lanka when he put on that huge partnership of 220 odd with Gambhir. And I think this is Eden. I don't know. I forgot the venue. Gambhir got the man of the match, but said, no, I want to give it to Virat. So this was not Virat's first interview, but it was his first interview for a magazine cover. So which in itself, at least 10 years ago, 11 years ago, was a big deal. Now a magazine cover is no big deal because he's Virat Kohli. But this was still the Virat Kohli who very few were convinced about. The attitude, the brashness, the IPL sideshow, all that stuff. He was the face of Indian cricket, but this cocky thing. I was actually very surprised when I got to sit with him for 40 minutes, just me and him talking. Surprised at how smart he was, how well he spoke, how well he read the game. One of the questions, I think the fourth question I asked him was, I said, Virat, people have been talking about you as a future Indian captain because you captained all the age groups. You led India under 19. Ray Jennings, your RCB coach, says this. And I said, and now there's talk of you probably breaking into the test team very soon. He said, no, I'm not ready to play test cricket right now. I need to play a lot more first class cricket for Delhi and the zonal tournaments, and then I can think about. I would assume someone said, "Ha ha, main bilkul ready hu. I played 25 ODIs, but not the answer." And that one answer said, beyond this cockiness and brashness, there's a guy with a brain behind there. So yeah, so I think that's my sort of big interview of a player before. Of course, he was not a 15-year-old kid like Sachin was, but he was not the Virat Kohli, which he became literally less than a year later when he helped India win the World Cup. So
it means that the Alter family has some kind of Nostradamus capacity to seek out the next Indian star.
That no, I think it's a very, very, very different case, because in 1988, my father used to write. He used to freelance for the group that runs Midday. I'm forgetting the media house. So he and Ayaz Memon used to do some shows. So Sunil Gavaskar, having just retired recently, he was a consultant for that group. And he said, "You guys want the next big story? There's a boy called Sachin who's 14. He's breaking records. Go find him." So my dad and Ayaz, they found him. In the time of finding him, he went with Kamli and scored those runs anyways. So the name was big, but that's very different than me going and chasing Virat Kohli, who'd already played, several matches. So, but yeah, I see what you're trying to.
I'm waiting for for your son or your daughter to find the next Indian superstar. You'll be waiting
my son just knows Kohli right now. So I got to get him off Kohli and finding somebody else. So.
Jamie, I just had one last. I mean, this is just your view, and you have to probably go back now and probably think what you felt. Just piggybacking on what Rahul asked you about, basically, about Sir Tom Halter. So, did you ever that moment when he interviewed Sachin? When was it that one moment you realized the magnitude of that video, that he had actually interviewed a 16-year-old? Did you realize it like 5-7 years later when Sachin had already toured Australia in 1992, or was there any wow moment? Oh wow, my dad actually did it. There must be some moment you might have realized, geez, I'm in awe of my dad. He was doing that stuff.
Yeah. So when my father went for the interview, he's like, you want to come along, because this is gonna. And I was not even watching cricket. He's like, no, this guy's gonna be big one day. Okay, we go there. I'm like, where's this big shot? And then I hear this voice. I look around, I'm like, this kid's barely taller than me. His voice sounds like me. This is the guy you're talking about. So there's this cocky kid like, hey, isme kya hai, yaar? And then of course, but then it was around the 1993, 94 mark, when he started to open in one days in that New Zealand tour. And as it turns out, the American School of Bombay, which is now this huge beast in the BKC area, that time was in a building right opposite the American consulate in Beach Candy. And the building, which has a very famous arch, where the school had leased out the bottom floor. That house was owned by the Mehtas, who are Anjali Mehta's parents. So true story, Sachin, when he was dating Anjali, would come, and he'd come in this fancy big black car, probably a BMW. It was a black car. And you can imagine in a school full of, expats and Americans, where like there were just two of us who would even whisper about cricket, because you in middle school, which are the hardest years, you don't do anything which makes you out of the in group, right? So me and my friend, he was an Australian, New Zealand guy, we never spoke about cricket. It was hush hush. But we used to get a kick when Sachin used to come out, and very shy, very awkward. He would drive his own car. He'd park the car on the main road, as you could do in 1992, 93, and he'd look up the window and he'd like try and get her attention, So then I'm like, hey, that's the guy who's now scored all these runs. So then I realized, okay, this guy who's now breaking records, my dad had him like 5 years ago on his show. So that's exactly what you're asking. That's when the whole proud and the wow factor came in. Around that time, there was one of these, celebrities versus sports people. It's not cricket match, but exhibition tennis match in New Delhi, which was organized by Vijay Amritraj and Sunil Gavaskar. So my father was playing tennis, and he was also like the master of ceremonies for the 2 days. So we flew up, I think it was the weekend, we flew up. And then as we got to the hotel, I don't know where it was, there were Sachin and Gavaskar having tea. And we sat there for like an hour, we had tea. That's when it hit me, okay, this is the guy who, yes, I've seen him on TV, but now as like an 11-year-old, I realized the magnitude of what this guy means to India. And that's more than that's when I realized what my father did was amazing. So the awe factor just came up that time.
Right, guys, I think it's time for us to swiftly move on to our hardcore cricket discussion now.
I
And
talked a lot,
let's,
sorry.
no worries, no worries, it's time
It's
for
very
us
nice to know all
to,
these stories.
it is, it is. These are very fascinating tidbits that you're sharing with us, and it's much appreciated. Our forum posters will absolutely love this stuff.
15
So-
years loyal posters on Indian cricket fan. They're going to explode when they hear all those stories. What are you talking about?
Especially when they hear that Sachin Tendulkar went in a BMW to date Anjali Tendulkar.
I've seen it. With my own eyes, I've seen it.
Great stuff. So, hello, guys. Now, let's talk about the ongoing England tour of India. We're at the midway point of the Test series. It's 1-1, and the stakes are quite high. Things are heating up. I'm not just talking about the weather. The players, they're having their tussles on the pitch. The pundits and the fans, they're going at each other's throats off the pitch. Exchanging jibs and jabs on social media. Michael won bakwas kar raha hai. It's fantastic stuff, and I'm loving it. But Jamie, what are your thoughts on the series so far? According to you, what have been the main talking points?
The pitch and the pitch, to be very honest. Look, you got. I mean, I don't need to explain to you that this was a rather un-Chennai like pitch, because in the first test, because there was really nothing in it for the bowlers. It's a match which largely was dictated by whoever won the toss, and obviously a fantastic toss for Joe Root to win. We've heard all sorts of things, that maybe India took their foot off the pedal, maybe they lost a bit of focus. I don't know, because what happened in Australia was unheard of. And then you come back, maybe just they weren't used to playing at home for a while. I don't know. I just think it just was whoever batted first had to do very well, and England getting to 580 odd just sort of knocked India on the back foot. And then Dom Bess goes and gets 4 big wickets. And if you follow Dom Bess, you know that he's played 9 consecutive Test matches for England, during which he's done pretty well. But somehow people just don't take him as seriously as they do a Jack Leach or a Moeen Ali. But all said and done, when he gets those 4 big wickets, I was one of the people who thought that, okay, fine, England got 575, India might get 600, But when that didn't happen, it was very, very hard for India to come back. So that pitch, everyone spoke about Ashwin, Kohli, many people spoke about it. But then you go to the second match, which was, I think, a rather Indian surface. And then that match by certain British and Australian players is termed poor and all. That was not poor at all. Poor is Johannesburg 2018. Poor is Pune 2017. Poor is Nagpur 2015. Poor is Galle 2011. Poor is that West Indies 97, that Bridgetown. These are poor pitches. Yes, the ball was spinning and there was a puff of dust in the 9th over of the match. But it was, to my mind, it was consistent turn, consistent bounce. There were no shooters and no balls spinning up at you. And the team which bowled and batted better in these conditions won the match by 317 runs, which Joe Root has rightfully acknowledged. So, a huge win for England, a huge win for India, which sets the series brilliantly for the third test. We can go on about who did well and who scored runs. I think the 2 pitches were so vastly different in Chennai. And then neither was a typical Chennai wicket. Chennai wickets, you see batting is good for a day or so, and then days 3 and 4, a lot happens, and then day 5 is turning. Didn't see that in the first match, though. I mean, Anderson bowled that lovely spell of reverse. There was no sharp turn on day 5s. And here, there was turn, but it was consistent turn across 4 days. So, sort of, to my mind, a very un-Chennai wicket, which has proven the talking point of both matches there so far.
I just had a quick question on that part, what you mentioned about the pitch. The first test match, of course, we struggled, and you explained it pretty well. England made the youth of the first batting because they won the toss. But do you think it's a fair criticism on our current Indian crop of players that they are no way close to what we had previously, Dravid, Tendulkar, in terms of playing the spin? Like Kohli and all, they might be doing well, but they're not as consistent against spin bowling. Guys like Rohan and all, they have regularly struggled on this. So when we are developing home pitches, when we're curating these home pitches, we also have to be mindful that it can be too spin friendly, even though our bowlers will make big use of it, but our batsmen aren't the best spin players like we used to have, the greats we used to have. We cannot definitely compare them.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no comparing us. I mean, you talk about Sachin, Dravid, I would say Gautam Gambhir. Probably Sachin and Gambhir played spin like this. Perhaps Sachin maybe a little bit. I think Gambhir was a fantastic player of spin. Sehwag had his days, but he was not a natural against spin. He was like, I'm going to hit the ball. Lakshman, not a natural player of spin, but because he grew up on those matting wickets of Hyderabad, he learned it. Ganguly was okay against, far better than these guys. Yes, I see where there's a reason to believe that this team is not as good against spin, because there have been matches where spinners like Jason Krejcia and even Brad Hogg once gave Yuvraj a terrible time in a test match. So yes, while this generation is not as well equipped to playing spin, like I said on another show recently, it's because Indian domestic cricketers are not playing enough good spinners. And I think you can only become a great player if you're playing great spinners. You talk about the Vishwanaths and the Vengsarkar and the Gavaskar and all those batsmen. It's because they were playing quality spinners. Yes, India had this great quartet of spinners who played test cricket, but look at the guys behind who never got a chance at playing for India. Some certain spinners were even ranked better than the great quartet. So that kind of an environment, that kind of a system will naturally produce great spin playing batsmen. We're not seeing it now. But even that said, look, India had not lost a test match, 15 test matches at home, against quality spinners. And going back to the rank turner topic, they asked for a rank turner at the Wankhede in 2012, and Swan and Monty smashed India there. They asked for a rank turner in 2015. Jadeja won that match. I think that Dean Elgar got 4 wickets on the first day, and then the third time around, Steve O'Keefe totally screwed India. So rank turners have backfired on India. But this case, again, I'm going back to the fact this was not a rank turner. It had consistent spin, but nothing sharp or nothing, poor, I would say. So overall, yes, this team does not play spin as well, but it's not like they've been totally horrible against spin as well.
Coming to that, Jamie, like in 90s, someone who have watched cricket in 90s, now India shifted to creating pitches with seam movement and bounce in early 2000s. You think that has affected our ability to play spin?
Yeah, I don't know, because like I said, the quality of spinners coming through. I'll give you an example. When in the 90s, because you brought it up, it was very hard for touring teams to come here. You had Kumble, you had Raju, you had Rajesh Chauhan, the Harbhajan Singh came. But even though these spinners were playing, you had a Murli Karthik, who many agree was the greatest left-arm spinner of this era. He didn't get regular games. You had Sairaj Bahutale. You had these guys, if they weren't playing for India, in the A tournaments, in Irani, Dulip, domestically, they were taking wickets. Now you don't see too many spinners. It's rare that a Shahbaz Nadeem gets 50 wickets in a year, because traditionally in the last 10 to 12 years, it's the pacers who've been taking it. But it's not like the wickets have been, really conducive to pace. We still don't have one real pace-friendly wicket. We heard of Mohali in the 90s and 2000s being a bit pace-friendly, but nothing like what you encounter overall. I think it's probably a diet of too much T20 cricket where shots have to be played. What kind of quality spinners would a Virat Kohli play if he does go back to domestic cricket? These guys are not playing. If they're playing spinners, they're playing Nathan Lyon, who still gets 8 wickets in a match, but somehow India win the match. So when India wins matches, no one says, yeah, they played spin badly. It's when a Steve O'Keefe takes 12 wickets and India lose, then the top crops up, which is why I think we're talking about it again, because Dom Best took wickets. Even Moeen Ali took 8 wickets, but the team lost by 317 runs. So the margin of victory, that makes more headlines than how many times Rahane fell to spin, So
Jamie, if you will allow me, so you're telling that we are not playing quality spinners. So what next for India after Ashwin and Jadeja? Who do we look up to? You have been following the domestic cricket. Like, is there any chance that Kuldeep Yadav or Rahul Chahar would be the next to step up? Have you seen them play?
It's a very good question. And I think the fact that Kuldeep Yadav, and again, I've said this often, 2019 SCG, he takes 5 wickets. Ravi Shastri rocks up the post-match and says, this guy's our next overseas spinner. When does he play his next test match? 25 months later, right? So when Kuldeep Yadav is not being valued, who do you call when Akshar Patel is not around? Shahbaz Nadeem. Nothing against Shahbaz Nadeem. I think he's ticked all boxes, but he's not a bowler who's going to run through too many lineups. It's the dependency on Ashwin and Jadeja is immense. Rahul Chahar, fine. Rahul Chahar is being called in on what? On IPL performances, right? Ravi Bishnoi had one very good under-19 World Cup literally a year ago. Does pretty well in the IPL, but one IPL season is not going to make you a Team India bowler. So while you might see spinners coming up, are these spinners taking heaps of wickets in 4-day cricket? Akshar Patel isn't playing for a long time, but how many matches, how many first-class games has he actually played? You'll be surprised, not that many. And yes, he's taken wickets, but this is a perfect wicket for a spinner to make his debut on, right? Had Akshar made a debut in the first match, I doubt he would have gotten 6-7 wickets. So exactly, I don't know when the next Ashwin or the next Jadeja will come from. You'll see a lot of good fast bowlers coming through, the Shivam Mabis, the Karthik Tyagis, the Nagar Kotis, and many, many more. Avesh Khan, these guys, but you're not seeing enough spinners come through, which some would say is a good thing because India for years have not had good fast bowlers, and now we're blessed for fast bowling talent. But yeah, I don't know when the next test spinner is going to come through.
So how do you think we should go? I mean, I tell you, give you an example. In the late 2000s, suddenly the Pakistan team, they started depending upon lots of spinners, and Abdul Rahman and Saeed Ajmal, etc. coming, and they were winning test matches on their back. And suddenly their fast bowling became a secondary thing. Now, after these people have gone, now they don't have that many quality fast bowlers in their team. So you think India may be going down that line, and we may be losing quality spinners in an attempt to have quality pacers, and then a decade down the line we may be having issues?
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to Pakistan, that they have no system, and yet things happen. There's a different, whether it's planned or not, who knows? I once interviewed Saklain Mushtaq when he was playing county cricket, and he's like, "Yeah, I was bowling the dusra when I was 12 years old with a ping pong ball. So हमारा system ही कुछ और है वहाँ पे." So I don't know how things work there. I mean, there's stories of how Imran Khan was in a chopper looking down at gullies, and that's where he saw Wasim Wakar. Who knows? So there's an entirely different. Even they don't get how their system works. So as far as India goes, I just think the BCCI or the system also never really knows what direction it's going. Right? The IPL for long was maligned. Now it's being seen as the source of this young, confident India. I think Rahul Dravid being part of the setup is probably had a bigger impact as well. But like I was saying, I don't think, despite this BCCI's pitches and whatever grounds committee, they've not been able to give you a consistently good surface at any venue across it, right? So it's not like it's encouraging. It'll always aid the batsman, because India is a country of great batsmen, then great spinners and fast bowlers in the last 4 years. I just don't think they're grooming enough spinners. The focus is on an IPL franchise, on Syed Mushtaq Ali. You just don't see the spinners taking wickets in first-class cricket, barring a Shahbaz Nadeem who gets 50 wickets in one. There was one more guy before from Bengal, a spinner. He got about 40 something wickets a few years ago. But I don't think it'll have an adverse effect on pace bowlers, because I can literally see 8-9 guys between the ages of 17 and 24 lined up willing to play for India, whereas for spinners, not much.
So now let's coming to the pink ball test. Now this is the second pink ball test we'll be hosting. Now, there's been a lot of talk about the pink ball and the grass on the wicket favoring the English. So how do you think it will go?
I think we have to look at what kind of. There's only been one pink ball match in India before this, which was a little after Diwali 2 years ago at Eden Gardens.
Yeah.
India smashed Bangladesh. Can you tell me how many wickets the spinners took in that match?
Hardly anything. I think it was Yadav and Shami and Ishant running through the entire.
Zero. India spinners didn't take a single wicket in that match. Right. So this leads me to believe that they may even go in with one spinner for this match, right? Because you have recency bias. You only do what worked for you the last time, right? If Ashwin and Jadeja are not getting wickets in a pink ball match in India, forget Adelaide. Adelaide was a different country, a different situation. They rested Bumrah because of the same thing. They want Bumrah fit. Kuldeep Yadav is definitely not going to play, because I don't think that they need 3 spinners. You might even see Hardik Pandya come in as the all-rounder and bowl a few overs in that match. Same with England. England have played 3 day-night matches. In 2, they were smashed. So they also have not figured out what is required in a day-night match. Upar se it's India, which only hosted one, like I said, at a brand new refurbished stadium, new pitch, no first-class cricket to get any indication from. Only Syed Mushtaq Ali Trophy has been played here. Are you going to be able to judge from that? I don't know. It's a totally unknown commodity, which adds on top of this fact that it's locked at 1-1. Look, the grass and all, we've seen many venues have grass the day before. Come match day, the grass is shaved off. So I wouldn't read too much into the grass. But I think it's going to be a test match which is dominated by the bowlers, simply because what we've seen in that Eden Gardens. Yes, that was a different match. But under lights, we saw India were in control largely of the Adelaide Test before one Mitchell Stark spell knocked them backwards. But yeah, I'd be very hard pressed to say that it's going to aid spin right now, because I just don't see it happening. So expect the Pacers. Imagine Broad, Anderson, and Archer on one side, and Bumrah, Umesh Yadav is back in the squad now as of 2 hours ago. Maybe he comes in. Though I think they'll probably play Siraj just because he's been playing more than Umesh recently.
Well, you think this was a bit of a risk going in for the WTC, the World Test Championship?
Yeah. Look, I mean, like Joe Root said after the Chennai, the second time, he's like, we haven't lost the match. We're still 1-1, And I think the fact that it's a pink ball test really evens the scales between these two teams. I think the fourth test at Chennai, India will win hands down, because they'll have played one match there already, and that's not going to be a pink ball match. I don't think they're going to ask for a rank turner under lights. I don't think that, because Jack Leach and Best could also, pull one under their feet. So, and India lose here, it's Australia playing New Zealand in the final at Lords, which I don't think many Australians would have seen that happening, So it's going to be a super match for all these factors put together.
So I'll probably move on to IPL and our recent squad for India, which we picked for World T20. We already sort of figured out your prediction for India versus England, because I was going to ask you that, but we sort of figured out, which way you're leaning towards. It's even Stevens 50-50 as we go into the third test. But I'm really interested, before we move on to IPL, one last. So there's a big debate on our website, Indian Cricket Fans, and it's been there for the last 3-4 years, that Mahendra Singh Dhoni has been one of the greatest captains of Indian cricket. Do you rate him as a better spin bowling captain as compared to Kohli? A lot of people believe Kohli has been a better fast bowling captain, and Dhoni has been a much better spinners captain. You think that's the right way to judge both of these guys?
Dhoni is a better captain, hands down, no matter whichever way you look at it. I think Virat Kohli is the greatest batsman of this era, but as a captain, he has a lot to achieve. I think, and this has gotten me a lot of flack before, I think Virat Kohli is still not the best leader of his own squad, his own players, and definitely not of conditions. They've been ample examples in his record-breaking Test career where he's missed at the pitch overseas and played the wrong team. But yeah, absolutely, I think Dhoni did handle spin much better. But again, he's a keeper, right? He has the vantage point. He's got the best view in the house, And that man's game reading, I mean, there's no one like him, Excellent game reading, knows who to bring on. There, some people called it luck and gut feeling. I think he had it all there, Whereas Virat Kohli is a more of a reactive captain. I think the way he's handled Umesh Yadav is far better than how Dhoni handled Umesh Yadav. Umesh Yadav got the nickname of Jungli Yadav when he was playing for Dhoni. But now under Virat Kohli, people are now calling him Umesh again. And I think that's a big tribute. And yes, of course, this whole the re-emergence of Ishan Sharma 3.0, Shami 2.0, Boomer, this all happened under Virat Kohli. So I get the argument that he's handled the Pacers much better, but that's because he's had these 4 exceptional Pacers. Maybe Dhoni, if he had these guys in 2014 England, we wouldn't have lost 4-1. I don't know about that. But hands down, as a tactician, Dhoni was leagues ahead of Virat Kohli.
All right.
One thing I'd like to bring it to you, Jamie, a small tidbit from our forum. The way Dhoni handled spinners, and he will choke the runs out for the opposition. He was nicknamed as Dhoni Konda, like Anaconda chokes out the opposition. he was called Dhoni Konda on our forum.
Nice.
Yep. And that's about us from India versus England. We'll move on to the fast cricket T20. Have you had a chance to look at the squads roster, or at least the new inclusions in the sides, with the recent auction which has happened?
Very briefly. So I covered the auction. You asking about the auction, or you're asking about the India squad, which was named the day after?
I'll come to that India versus England T20 squad. But have you had a chance to see the IPL auction?
I mean, I
or
saw
IPL
it,
teams?
but despite having like covered the whole day, I forgot the next day who was picked because I'm really bad when it comes to IPL. But I know like who the big earners were. You asked me to dissect each team spending, and I'll be blank. But
yeah, I mean, I know there are a lot of players who were being pegged and moving around from different sides, but just by looking at the squad on the paper, I mean, which one you think is still looking good, barring Mumbai Indians, who are always doing good? Somehow they find their way to playoffs always. Any other team you think are looking good, like teams like Delhi, they have gone finally a senior middle order batsman in Steve Smith. You think, is that the right? They were in the finals this year and last year, and I believe someone like Smith can actually make an impact. What do you reckon about that?
yeah, look, when it comes to Delhi Daredevils or Delhi Capitals, whatever you call them, the Delhi teams invariably have gone into every IPL season with a damn good team on paper. But barring 2 seasons under Shreyas Iyer and a new name, they've just never managed to get it together. I think they had a few weaknesses. They definitely needed another Indian keeper because after Rishabh Pant last season, Pant gets injured. Oh, we have nobody. We have to play Alex Carey. But it's always a dilemma when you have to drop an Indian player to play an overseas player. And same, I mean, as good a deal as getting Smith was, where do you place Smith, right? You have, if you, who do you have? You have Stoinis, you have Rabada, you have Nokia. These 3 guys have to play. Then it's sort of, I mean, I can see him perhaps taking the place of Shimron Hetmeyer, but it's not like Steve Smith is a certain starter for game 1 of IPL 221, I think that's the dilemma that a lot of teams face with Smith, because we saw it last year. He had a great start, but then after 3 innings, when the runs dry up, when the strike rate dips to 107, 112, that's not what teams need. And a team like Delhi played Rahane, which was I never saw it coming. I said on my show that I don't think Rahane will get a game. I think he got 3 in the end, So just because you have good players, it's the calls you make. I mean, look at RCB, they've never been able to figure out what it takes to win matches, right? And they have Virat Kohli. So many bowlers, just wrong calls, wrong choices. I think to answer your question, after Mumbai Indians, excuse me, I think it'll be a Sunrisers Hyderabad. They often have great teams on paper, and despite losing Mitch Marsh and Billy Stanley, they got Holder. They kept out Kane Williamson for how many matches? So when you have that, that's how it should work. Not because you don't know what to do with him, but you just can't fit him in. With Rashid, Warner, Bairstow, and who's the 4th overseas pick they always go for? One more. Whoever it is, they had to get rid of one guy to play Kane Williamson. I think they've made some very smart buys this time around. And even Chennai, Chennai having Suresh Raina come back, Chennai buying Moeen Ali, who I think is a valuable T20 player. I just hope that Chennai figure out where to use Moeen, because Virat Kohli has never known where to bat, when to bowl Moeen Ali. And I think, going back to your point with it about Dhoni, he's got the best captain. Moeen Ali's got the best captain he could ever play under in the IPL in MS Dhoni. So I think that team, now that they've got some deadwood out of the way, could really come back strongly in IPL 21.
What about Kyle Jamieson for 15 crores? What do you think about that?
I mean, on what basis? You see the body of work he has in T20 cricket. Was Virat Kohli impressed by him in 4 spells in 2 test matches? I've heard this. I mean, I've been following him in there, whatever that Georgie Borgie T20 smash, whatever it's called, there. He's not doing anything there, So I mean, great for him, because New Zealand cricketers are one of the most hardworking but underpaid breed of cricketers. Great for him. But I mean, for an unknown commodity in T20s, lot of money, man, lot of money.
As humans, we always want to visit all 7 wonders of the world. Thing with these Australians they want to play for every team, every IPL team. What's up with that? We have seen Aaron Finch, who's finally not picked for the first time. We are seeing Glenn Maxwell finally reaching Karnataka RCB team. You think, is that his ideal? That'll be the final nail in the coffin for him. Where do you see him? How do you see him doing in a much smaller ground? It could be that might be his luck coming out right now.
It could be the final nail in his coffin in both uses of the terms. If he flops here, we could never see him again. But yeah, I mean, look, a smaller ground, it'll definitely suit his batting. I think the Mohali track just didn't suit him. Probably India, smaller grounds. That's it. I mean, how well has Yuzvendra Chahal managed to keep batsmen in check there? But maybe Virat Kohli and Maxwell will get along better than Maxwell and whoever else has been around him. And I'm sure a lot of fans of Australian cricket, Indian fans, RCB fans would love to see Maxwell do what he's capable of. But some reason, barring one season, 2014, for Punjab when he clicked, he's just not been able to click. And you see him doing so well in the Big Bash League, and then you wonder like what happens to him here, like first ball reverse sweep caught out, So I don't know. I still think.
Is it the quality of the bowlers he's facing?
Yeah, but I mean, look, the guy has smashed, T20 hundreds and one-day hundreds. He played a great innings against Australia last September in a final match of one-day series. So he's faced great bowlers, but I think he just gets ahead of himself. Like Gale's what? I'll play 12 balls, and then I'll get you 40 and 20, strike rate 200, right? Maxwell can do it, but he's just trying too hard. This last IPL, first ball, making room to cut and all, Baba, take 6-7 balls, figure out what you want to do, then do it, because you have this rare talent. But something the stars haven't aligned, or I don't think it's necessarily the bowlers and all, because he can do it. It's just he's just trying too hard,
So
So
coming
Jamie,
back to one more team, for which I have the bias because I am from Kolkata, is the KKR team. So what do you think? I mean, they were struggling last year because they didn't have a good Indian middle order batsman. This time they have gone for Karun Nair. You think Karun will do well in T20s?
Yeah, look, he's done pretty well wherever he's played. But again, he's one of those cases where a couple dry runs and then they bring somebody else. Definitely, I agree with you. KKR did not know what to do. They had Rahul Chhatr, what's his name? Rahul Tripathi was batting at
Rahul Tripathi, yeah.
number 7 and all. Then he opened. Nitish Rana was opening and batting at 3. So definitely they have problems. I think the bigger problem is what do you do with Dinesh Karthik right now, and where do you bat Andre Russell? Yes, we've seen Russell can do things from number 7, but isn't that a bit too low with Russell?
You think KKR is doing it wrong by playing someone like Narayan right up at the opening, and he may have smashed a few, but it's not going to work when you're up against bowlers like Bumrah and Notia and company. I mean, it may work in some other leagues, but not in the IPL maybe.
Yep, and we saw that. Yes, he had 2 good seasons where it worked, but each passing year you become older. The other bowlers get better. I was surprised that they kept Narayan opening for so long last season. Then they dropped him down, and then I think he did pretty decently. I think he got a quick 40 also once batting at number 4 or something. But I think they should shelve, they should shelve the experiment of opening with Narayan anymore. Just have him as a lower order slogger, and hopefully they bat Karun Nair and they give the boy a decent run. We've seen they chop and change. Kabhi Morgan at 4, kabhi Karthik at 4, kabhi Karthik at 3. Just figure out. I know T20 is about flexibility, but stick to something for 6-7 games. They always chop and change KKR. I don't know why.
So Jamie, before we go on to our last final small segment of finding dissecting the squad which was picked for T20, I want to put you on task, a quick task where I have created a new IPL team for you. Suppose it's supposed to come in 2022. The team name is Mussoorie Mountaineers. You are the selector / captain. Which 4 players? You only got to pick 4 players. One of them has to be Indian and 3 overseas. Which one Indian player you pick, who will go on to captain Mussoorie Mountaineers, and which 3 overseas you pick? I'm giving you option. The auction is fully open. Any Indian player, any player who currently plays can be picked. Who are your top 4 players?
The Indian has to be the captain or non-captain?
Indian has to be the captain. So you got to pick between one of the current ones or whoever you want. Yeah, and the other 3 has to be international.
That rules out Bumrah as the captain.
And it doesn't have to be, you can pick all batsmen or bowlers, any type. I just need 4 players, 3 overseas.
If the captain, despite his captaincy flaws for what he brings, I'll still go with Virat Kohli.
Okay. And what will be your 3 overseas players?
Nokia?
That's interesting.
I'm taking Gale still because in the high altitude the ball's going to fly, so I'm taking Gale. He can still do it. And I'm going for, I've got a batsman, I've got 2 batsmen, I've got a pace bowler, and I'm going to go for Rashid Khan.
Whoa,
Okay.
that's the crazy combination you picked. I mean,
Very
even though I left
field,
it open, it's not too easy to pick among all the great players who are playing or who have played. 4 players. You got Kohli, who's going to probably lead, and then you have Gale opening together, perhaps. And then you got the best spinner in IPL so far, one of the best. And Nortje had a classy season last year, especially, yeah. Oh, that's classic. Amazing.
Okay, Jamie, I have just small rapid fire for you. Okay, just one word answers. Okay.
Okay.
Best batsman you have seen.
Sachin.
Better captain, Dhoni or Kohli?
Dhoni.
Better fielder, Jadeja or Yuvraj?
Jadeja.
Kumble or Ashwin?
Kumble.
Dhoni or Kohli the captain?
As a captain, Dhoni.
Best Indian player you have seen in your life?
Indian player. I mean, how do you look beyond Sachin for what he's done?
Okay, that's it. Thank you for that.
So, Jamie, fantastic answer. So, last thing we'll cover is the recent squad which was picked. It was an emotional time probably for Surya Kumar Yadav. Finally picked. We all have been seeing his progress. I think that was probably the highlight for me in the squad, even though I love the inclusion of the other 2 youngies, like Ishan Kishan and Rahul Tewatia. But I think this deserves the headline. It's Surya Kumar Yadav. What do you think about the squad which was picked? Rishabh Pant is also back in the squad. It's funny, he's been back. He's back after scoring a good test knock at the Gaba. That's what reminded everyone, okay, he deserves also in T20. But what do you make the overall pick of the squad?
First of all, we have to see who's gone out, right? Sanju Samson is out. Manish Pandey is injured, so that's opened up a slot. Shikhar Dhawan was there. T. Natarajan is gone, right?
Oh, he's there. He's there.
Bumrah.
Do you have the squad? Okay. Bumrah is being rested, which is fine.
Bumrah has been rested.
Bhuvneshwar comes back after a long time. Ishan Kishan comes in. So Pant comes in. Iyer is still there. Tewatia comes back because some all-rounder is gone. Who's gone out?
Jadeja is out. He's
injured. Okay. So yes, fine. I mean, fine. So I'm looking at the guys who've been rested. You rest a fast bowler, you bring back one. You have an injured all-rounder, you need one. Tewatia did very well for RR last season. I get that. Surya has been knocking on the door for a couple of years now. Ishan Kishan has had a damn good IPL. He's now scored runs in the Syed Mushtaq Ali. He scored runs in the Vijay Hazare. That's fine. Will Ishan Kishan play and will Surya play? Not so straightforward. But it just speaks about the depth that India has right now. I was talking to Manoj Tiwari on Cricket Fables on Sunday, and he said, "Yeah, Jamie, I don't like this word, A team, B team, which you're using. I think it's testament to the skill we have that all these players can walk into, and even as a B team, they're capable of being A team players." I mean, he has a point. I think right now, Ishan Kishan, Rishabh Pant, Surya Kumar Yadav, Manish Pandey, these guys aren't B players. I mean, they're very good players because they have the body of work. They've done very well in the IPL. And when you pick a squad for T20s, your reference point will invariably be the IPL more than the Syed Mushtaq Ali Trophy. So I think it's, especially in Surya's case, hats off for him. I hope he gets to play a match or two, because we've seen many times these players get picked and then they don't get a chance. So you have Shikhar Dhawan, you have Rohit Sharma. Will they play Shikhar Dhawan? I don't know, because normally Rohit and KL open, right? Virat is there, Iyer is there. Where do you slot in Ishan Kishan and Surya? It's tough, right? That means that if Surya plays, Pant won't play. So it's going to be fun to see how it works out.
There's also a case where we might see 2 keepers playing. It's not a strange territory for India in T20s where we have had players who can keep. Multiple players can keep. Rahul can keep. We had a team where we had Karthik could keep, Rahul could keep, and a lot of other players could keep. Yep. I think there could be a chance we might see Shikhar Dhawan sit out, and we could actually see Rishabh Pant also open and Rahul slotted later, because Rahul does have a century at coming first or second down here in Florida. And it's a big mess, but it's a good problem to have for India.
Yeah, it's a good problem. I think just given the fact that they've entrusted Rahul with the keeping skills, I don't think because Pant's keeping is still pretty poor against spin. So probably Rahul will continue to keep. Where he opens, again, with the World Cup, it all depends how this selection committee sees the 2 World Cups coming up back to back. I gut feeling says they want Rahul opening because that's where he's done the best. So I would say yes, I agree with you. I think Shikhar Dhawan probably will sit out at the start. Maybe if India's up 3-0, they might give Shikhar Dhawan a game. Definitely Rohit Sharma is back. He'll be hungry to do well. He's got hundreds. So Rohit Sharma, Rahul opening for sure. Virat at 3. Then you look at Shreyas Iyer, and then who comes at 5 and 6? Is Hardik Pandya there? He is, right?
Yep.
So Hardik is 6 or 7. So if India choose to rotate, then foreseeably Pant gets a game or 2, Surya debuts, and maybe Ishan debuts in one of the last matches, maybe.
There's one more wild card in the team called Varun Chakravarti.
Yes.
He's in the squad.
Yes.
What's your thoughts
He
on
was
Varun?
there. He was there for Australia. Then he got injured in the net, so he didn't go to Australia actually. Again, he's a strange selection based on one IPL season. So again, does he play? Kulcha are there. Tewatia is there.
I don't think Kuldeep is in the squad. Only
Kuldeep is not there?
Chahar. No, only Chahar is there.
Rahul
Chahar
Chahar is
and-
there also? I think it was just
No.
Deepak Chahar is there, right?
Deepak Chahar is there.
Deepak is a
Deepak
fast
Chahar is
bowler.
there.
Who are the spinners?
The spinners are Chahal, Varun Chakravarti, Akshar Patel, Washington Sundar, Rahul Tewatia.
Washington has done very well opening the bowling. Not taken wickets,
Yeah.
but he's kept runs. I see him playing for sure. Akshar, maybe if he does well in these 2 test matches. I hope they give everyone at least, the fringe players, at least a chance, because you feel bad when these guys are called up and then they're just made to sit around and carry drinks, right? Especially with, I know we're playing a lot of white ball matches. We're playing 8 white ball matches.
Yeah.
I
5
hope
T20s.
everyone gets a chance.
Wow, we have covered a lot, guys. I mean, yeah, this has been fun. I mean, it's been great for me. I'm sure Rahul and Akun are having a great day. Have enjoyed the session. Jamie, I can't really thank you much. We really appreciate you joining in. But before we let you go, I will hand you over, and you can share how people can actually find you on internet. You have multiple YouTube channels, Twitter account. Maybe can you just share those details with our viewers?
Yeah. So my personal channel is Jamie Alter, JAMIE Alter. I think officially in the thing it comes as James Alter. So maybe you can put in James Alter and search for it. Then I run a channel called Cricket Fables with my wife Meha, where, as the name suggests, we talk about cricket. And then I have a third channel called Let's Learn with Jamie, in which, based on user feedback and a lot of it, I sort of teach people the finer nuances at a very basic level about English grammar and some misconceptions. It's basically teaching English through Hindi, which not a lot of people do. And when it's me, people get surprised. So that's there. You can find me on Facebook at Jamie Alter Actor. I'm on Instagram at jamie.alter. I'm on Twitter at alter_Jamie. That's it. Yeah, come say hi, subscribe, like, whatever you want to do. I'm there.
Sure. I'm telling you, you'll get a lot of love. We have 15 years worth of loyal members on the website, so they will definitely love to follow you. And I'll share all the information about your channel in our description page, in the description section. And yeah, this is about done it. I mean, thanks for joining in. To everyone who's watching, stay tuned. We'll be bringing another great episode next week with another great journalist. So look forward to having you there. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
been fun.